All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Justin Glover, and I have Igor here on the line, and he's going to be talking about follow-up sequences, the thought process behind it, how to write follow-up sequences that actually work, because that is where majority of the money and profits will actually come from when you're doing any type of advertising, getting people into your world, bringing them into your list and your database and your whole world, following up and being able to do that on with a specific intention and have a goal and add value to their life, and also get them to take the desired action that you want them to take, which is ultimately buy something from you. There's a certain way to go about doing that, and there's very few people that I know that actually do it. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people out there will tell you how important they are. They'll tell you that you have to have these certain pieces in place. And if you really go and dive into their funnels and you really dissect what they're doing, what you will find is that 90% of them are not actually doing this stuff. They're just telling you to go and do it. And one of the reasons that I really like Igor is because Igor is doing this stuff. I've known him for a while. I've bought several solo ads from him. I've recommended him in past products. He's been one of those guys that's consistently there, that consistently gets results in the internet marketing and possibly even other niches in this whole thing, and makes it all work. So, Igor, I definitely appreciate you coming on the line and sharing this stuff with us. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, and I do appreciate the opportunity, Justin. It hasn't been easy to get this thing arranged. I've literally just stepped out of a conference that I've been to, this morning, where we had a lot of, local, launch superstars come in, like Peter Garrity and Alex Jeffries and, Mark Leifert, a lot of people who like making crazy amounts of money online. And so we got to rub shoulders with them this weekend. And so I'm literally doing this training with you for your folks out of my hotel room because the lobby is pretty noisy. So I may be a little rusty, okay, because I didn't have too much time to prepare. So I do apologize about that in advance. I would also love for you to occasionally stop me and ask me some questions because there's this thing called the curse of knowledge, which
Yes.
means that because I'm doing this thing, I've done it a lot of times and I do it on a daily basis. There's a lot of things that I internalize about it. I'm at this point, I'm like unconsciously competent about this whole thing. So many things, some things may go astray and I may just assume that the audience understands it. So if you do feel that it's happening, please go ahead and stop me and, ask me the question to explain whatever thing that I kind of miss, okay?
Will do. Will do. I appreciate you bringing that up too.
Alrighty, so is it okay if we kind of just dive right into it?
Yeah. Let's just go head first. Let's just get into it.
Alright, folks. So again, I do thank you, Justin, for the opportunity, and this is going to be really, really cool because so far the only people that got the privilege of understanding this stuff are my private clients who, paid me, quite the big bucks, if you will. And these techniques specifically is, well, they are the ones that I implement in my own follow-up techniques. So if after this training you decide to double check if I'm actually practicing what I'm preaching, you can go and you can sign up to my list. You can just email me. You'll get the email at the end of the presentation. You can sign up to my list and you can go through my follow-up sequence and see that each and every single one of these techniques is being utilized right now in my business. So what you're getting today is not some rehashed bullshit technique that somebody did sometime back in the 2000s. Okay, this is something that's actually working today, and I can guarantee that it's going to keep working for many years to come because all of these principles are based on human psychology and social interaction. So what we're going to be doing here is almost like manipulating people into buying stuff. But the thing is that, you know, since these tactics are very, very effective, I would like to kind of have a little disclaimer here and say only use them. Only use them if you honestly and passionately believe in your product. Okay, this is the only thing that I ask you to do. Only use them if you really sell something great, something that helps people, and something that's going to make their life easier, better, more enjoyable. Business is more profitable, and help them lose weight or whatever. Because you can easily use these tactics to manipulate people into buying things they don't need because of their ego and a lot of stuff going on. So pay attention and please use it to the good. So the big, title, the big name of this presentation that I decided to go with is how to get anyone to buy anything with a kick-ass follow-up sequence. Plus, you'll unearth the covered mind control techniques to get your subscribers to open, click, and buy your products. And one more time, once again, this is exclusive training. Nobody has ever had the pleasure of, having me deliver it besides my very private clients, but you guys. So take a lot of notes and get ready to be blown away. So the first thing I want to talk about is me, incidentally, because quite a few of you guys may not know me, and that's completely cool. So just to give you a little bit intro into my life, into my business, and why I'm qualified to give email marketing advice. So first and foremost, I've been making a full-time income, and last year was a seven-figure income through email marketing, and I've been doing this full-time since 2010. Now, in the last 2.5, maybe closing 3 years, I've collected over 2 million in profits in my business again through email marketing. And in that time, I've also mentored 56 real people, real marketers, to a full-time income of 10K plus or more per month, again with email marketing. And many of them gone on to become superstars in our industry. And if you just research my name, you will see that to be true. Now, in addition to these facts, I also mail anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000 emails every single day from multiple platforms, and mostly, by the way, in the internet marketing niche. I don't really do lots of work besides consulting in other niches at this point. And what's really important, something I really want you to kind of I want you to remember this, is that everything that I'm going to give you in this presentation, everything that you're going to learn, every single technique that I'm going to show you, it has been tested. Okay, it has been tested, and there's no fluff here or theory or wishy-washy kind of stuff where just one things to be like that. I was just yesterday I got a pleasure to hang out with a guy who used to do these big, $1 million in a week launches on ClickBank back when ClickBank was, very, very popular with internet marketers, and he was telling me how he was getting traffic from a solo provider, and he was telling him about the funnel, and how the funnel needs to look like, and how this, my friend needed to have one, and what elements to be in it, and my friend goes ahead and he asks the guy, right, can you show me your funnel? Turns out the guy who was like supposedly giving the advice didn't have a funnel at all. So it kind of shows a little bit that many times in our industry, the people who preach prosperity aren't really prosperous themselves. And it goes back, all the way to, to the 90s, to the 80s, when there was the big boom of information marketers, the seminars, the self-help, successful leaders, and stuff like that, right? So again, I'm just making this point so you guys know that I'm pretty much living and breathing this stuff every single day, and I get off on it. I really enjoy it. So everything you're going to learn in just a few minutes is completely tested, it's factual, and if you require more evidence as to how this works in my business, I'm always happy to email you some. You just got to reach out. So what you're going to discover specifically in this training, first and foremost, you're going to learn the art and science of getting them to open, click, and buy using your follow-up sequences specifically. The strategies that I'm going to be sharing are most effective when they're used in a sequence. Okay, that's why we're not talking about email broadcasts, which is when you just blast your list one time. These will work best when you do it consistently every day or every other day with your list, and you'll see exactly how to do it. Another thing you're going to learn is why your follow-up sequence is one of the most underused, underappreciated, and I got underappreciated there. You see, I was just preparing to the call. It's underused, underappreciated, and under, I guess, milked, if you will, a money-making mechanism in your business. Most people completely miss it, and they leave a ton of money on the table. In fact, as you can learn in just a few minutes, close to 50% of their profits can be collected just from the follow-up sequence. Now, you're also going to uncover the specific strategies that are going to allow you to stop leaving a ton of money on the table. And you can do it actually starting today. If you already have like a list going on and you know you have campaigns going out, you will be able to go into your campaigns if you have them and fix them up, and you will understand exactly how to do it and what you gotta say and how you gotta say it in order to get people to take action. I'm also going to tell you more about the covered mind control techniques that allow you to close anyone who's actually closable using your emails. Okay. So if you ever got the problem of not being able to get people to act, even though they told you that they like your product, this is not going to happen to you anymore. Also, the 3 vital keys to closing any sale. Okay, if you miss just one here, you cannot close it. And if you do, if you are able to close the sale without these elements, oftentimes it generates a lot of buyer's remorse and high refund requests. And as a bonus, if you stick all the way until the end of this training, I'm also going to give you for free, no strings, my swipe file that contains 11 of my top performing email subject lines and the detailed breakdown of exactly why they work, and of course how you can swipe them effectively to your own business. So getting started, I'd like to start with a fact, okay, which is you're willingly leaving 50% of your profits on the table as we speak, unless, of course, your follow-up sequence is living up to the standards I'm going to set up in just a few minutes. And if you're honestly not able to convert paid traffic into profits within the first 7 to 14 days of actually buying the campaign, then chances are your follow-up sequence is not living up to the standard it's supposed to be at, because oftentimes we can get some people to take action immediately, and then many people, what they experience is that they put their prospects through follow-up sequence. It can be as long as 28 days or as short as 3 days, and they don't get them to take action. And so all this money that was spent on the campaign goes away. Their hopes are being crushed because they were like hoping to make all that money back. And again, a lot of it comes down to the specific techniques and the specific thinking behind your marketing. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. Now, the money on the table, right, that most people don't really collect. Before I tell you more about it, just a couple of quick test results that I did in my business here. Now, these numbers are not super specific, I gotta admit, but they're roughly in that area. So if I say 42%, maybe between 35 and 45. If I say 63%, maybe between 55 and 65%, maybe 70. So it really depends on the campaign at hand, but on average, this is what you get. Okay. So test result number 1 was that 42% of Soloed or CPV traffic. Okay. So CPVs is pay-per-view traffic. And solo ads is, email traffic, solo ads, what I've been pretty much famous for. Now, 42% of sales that I get in my business when I run a solo ad campaign, they come from a follow-up sequence. Now, I have a follow-up sequence of just 7 days long. So within the 7 days of buying a solo, I get an extra 40% sales through the door. Okay. Now, when it comes to Facebook ads, which is not a really popular traffic source that I use to promote, some of the parts of my business, not everything, but some, is 63% of sales came from the follow-up sequence. So you see, there's a big difference here. So Facebook ads traffic usually buys after they've been exposed to you a couple of times. Okay, that's really very, very critical. So, in other words, attempting to sell them right away usually is not as effective as putting them through a very, very thoroughly crafted follow-up sequence. Now, there was another test basically that showed me that on average, okay, a transaction that came from my follow-up sequence versus a transaction that comes from an immediate action taker that was, when they were just exposed to the offer without going through my follow-up sequence is smaller by 250%. I'm sorry, it's higher, it's bigger by 250%, which means that on average, a person who gone through my follow-up sequence and then decided to buy something from me, right, they spend 2.5 times more than a person who just does it, on a on kind of like an emotional jump, an emotional high or adrenaline rush, if you will. And test number three, okay, is that 70% of sales happen, when it comes to analyzing the follow-up sequence specifically, right? Out of the 7 days, out of the 7 day follow-up sequence that I've got, which is one email per day that goes out to my list to the people who join my list, is 70% of sales happen either on the second email or after the fifth email in the sequence, which is interesting, okay? And actually, we're going to get deeper into it in the later stages of this training. You're going to see exactly why that happens. So, why do they don't buy? That's one of the most critical questions, I guess, that most people don't ever ask themselves. Most marketers actually fail long before they put up any marketing, long before they buy any traffic, long before they do anything in their business, because they fail to answer these important questions. Why do people do not buy their product at all? Like, what might be the potential reasons that people decide to say no to an incredible offer? Because we all know that we all have incredible offers, like no-brainers. I mean, just before getting on this call, Justin was telling me about this new product they launched, and he was genuinely super excited. Now, every single marketer, every single person out there who's selling information or software or doing anything online should be that excited about their product. So, but if everybody's excited and if everybody has the greatest thing ever, right, how does the prospect make the decision to whether buy or not buy? So here's 6 things, okay, that usually stop people from giving you money. So the 6 things that stand between you and your customer's wallet and complete cooperation are: they don't know you, they don't trust you, or they don't believe you're real, or all 3 together. So when I shared with you earlier that the 3 things you got to have in place in order for the sale to happen, well, you have to make sure that the prospect likes you, okay, that they trust you, and that they also believe and trust your method too, not just yourself. So we're going to talk about this in just a minute. Now, point number 2, right? Don't understand, believe your method. Okay, don't understand or believe your method or the techniques that are right for them. In other words, if I'm going to approach somebody and I'm going to tell them, they should join me and start building a list. If they are not into list building, if they haven't accepted the idea that the money is in the list yet, if they are into SEO and they want to like consult offline businesses and they're not interested in list building, no matter how great of a proposition I'm gonna give them, no matter how great of a pitch I'm gonna do, no matter how much sense am I gonna make, no matter how many emotional points I'm gonna push, right? They're not gonna take action with me because it's just not something they need. It's not something they believe that it's within their perception of themselves. It's not something that they want to spend time on, etc. So that is why it's critical to understand and help people understand whether or not the method, okay, the method, not just the product, right? It's not just specifically about the membership side you're promoting. It's not specifically about the ebook you want to sell them. It's the method that the ebook or the membership side is teaching. So if you study myself, I'm doing a lot of work in the list building niche. So again, if I'm approaching a prospect and they haven't really accepted the idea of list building as the best way to make money or the best way to secure a business from being subjective to Google updates and different regulations, they no matter how great I am in terms of being a salesman, they will never give me money. So this is the thing, right? So you want them to trust you, you want them to trust your method, and you want them to, of course, trust that the product is right for them. What this means is that some people, and this is like very surprising to me still, some people will never buy an ebook, but they will pay a lot of money for a video. Others will not go for a coaching program, but they will happily buy a $7 WSO, which is going to be an ebook. So other people don't buy ebooks at all, but they will go and they will buy software. So again, this is one of those things that most people fail to recognize, and they kind of spend a lot of time wondering why the hell people don't buy from them. Well, you see, there's a natural way and a biased way, people make decisions. And so if the person doesn't buy ebooks, and that's their thing, right? They buy software, but they don't want to buy ebooks, and they will only want to like learn from private coaches, for example, right? At this point in my life, right, because I've built my business up to greater levels, it's almost impossible, right, to get me to buy an ebook of some sort, okay, especially if it's a cheap one. What I do usually is I do private mentoring with people who have achieved greater levels of success. So if I see a great product by Guru X and it really made sense, in terms of the sales pitch, I will try to approach them and I will try to get their coaching, not their info product. Because to me personally, that's the way I make decisions. An info product in itself doesn't provide enough understanding, doesn't give me enough cutting edge information, and doesn't really help me on the same scale that a private mentoring would help me. At the same time, obviously, I'm realizing that private mentoring will be way more expensive, and that is cool with me, but that's the way I make decisions. So therefore, if you try to sell me an ebook, I will just not act on it because that's the way that I am. So again, these are the things that most people, most marketers really fail to acknowledge. Okay, they don't think about it, but you got to think about this stuff. So in other words, if you got a prospect who just, he says that everything just makes sense and they don't buy, chances are that if you offer them like the same content in a different wrapper, they will be more, receptive to buy. And it seems kind of like obvious, but it's really not. Most people just forget about it and never act on it. So number 4 is a lot of people don't take action right away, okay, because who they are. In other words, they just don't want to be they don't want to seem, okay, and I don't remember why I put easy fix in parentheses there, but they don't want to seem careless, they don't want to seem emotional. A lot of people just don't act. There was one time that I was talking to a gentleman from Australia a couple of years ago, and I made him a great proposition during my coaching program, and asked him, does it make sense to him? And he says, yeah, makes perfect sense. So I'm like, okay, let's go. And he said, well, no. I say, why? Well, you got to give me 24 hours to think about it. And I was like, well, you just said it makes sense. You said the price is right. So what's stopping you? And he said, well, nothing's stopping me. It's just, in Australia, you gotta, like, it's okay, it's normal, it's a custom that you gotta give me 24 hours to think about it because that's just the way we do things here. That's the way we do business. And it was like super weird to me because I don't really do business like that at all. If, as far as I'm concerned, we either do it right now or we don't do it at all. It's kind of like very, very passionate position, but that's the way I feel. And so I kind of failed to recognize the fact that she just has a different way, a different, pattern in which he makes these decisions. So some people will not buy the first time they see your product simply because they don't buy products for the first time they see them, right? They will go and research them, they will try to ask their friend about the product, what they think about it, they will go to their mentor and show them the sales page and say, what do you think about this? They will try to research your name and stuff like that. So they will just not act right away. They want to let it sink, they want to let it sit, and they want to delay taking action because that's the nature of who they are. Now, another thing that's really important is that we tend to really forget, okay, and I'm guilty of this, I'm still doing it, I'm still forgetting all this stuff, is I call it the monkey brain, to be honest. That's a term that my mentor taught me. So what it means is that, when you do something online, when you try to read a sales page, when trying to consume an info product, there's a million things that are going on at the same time. So your phone is beeping or vibrating, your wife or husband is calling your name, you got a dog humping your leg, you got Facebook open and chats going on. So I mean, Justin, isn't that true? You're probably chatting with somebody right now while I'm talking, aren't you?
No, but I used to. I know exactly what you're talking about, and so many people fall into that trap. I mean, it's very the whole multitasking myth that's out there is very difficult to get people around and to figure out that, hey, that's not the best way to approach things. So I'm right here on pace
Yeah,
with you, man.
I totally agree with that. I mean, it not only hurts their own productivity, but the thing is that it makes our job of closing the deal so much more difficult. And when I say monkey brain, right, again, it's a term that I was taught by my mentor who taught me how to write copy and everything. It's basically that you gotta, when you sell, right, online, whether in your email or on your sales page or in any presentation, you have to be always getting the client back into the presentation because they get distracted very quickly. So if they were like browsing, like imagine this, somebody, you hit the inbox and somebody, looks over your sales page. They just start reading the sales page and they get a phone call. So immediately their attention span kind of goes away from the sales page and fully into the phone call. They need now to make a judgment call whether or not they answer the phone call or they don't. If it's important enough, they do. If it's their wife or spouse or kid or something, and now they're done with the phone call, they're coming back to the sales page, and oh crap, I gotta pick up the kids from school. And so this whole hectic kind of you know chaos going on around them, and oftentimes they just get distracted. Okay, they just get distracted from reading the page, they get distracted from watching a video, and they forget. And so another big thing in our marketplace is that they kind of bookmark the page, and I did it many times myself. You kind of bookmark the page and you just go, you say, okay, I'm busy now, but I like it, that makes kind of makes sense, so I'm going to bookmark it right now, and I'm going to come back to it later tonight when I'm done with my work. And you don't. It just sits there for days and weeks. I've just purchased this product a couple of days ago that's supposed to help you create a timer, right? So you can do actual real scarcity on your sales pages. And it was sitting in my bookmark tab for 2 months before I actually did it. So there's, nobody's bulletproof from this, okay? That is why having a follow-up sequence is another reason why it's so effective, because the one thing people actually do, they check their emails, okay? And if they see your, offer in their email every single day for 7 to 10 days straight, there's a much higher chance for them to click on the link again and read the page again or watch that video and actually take action, get rid of all the distractions and just do it. And number 6, which is the most traditional one, and that's what most people think is the biggest one, which it isn't, to be honest. The biggest one is probably 1 and 2, more than anything else, is objections. So it may be a price objection, which is, price is too high. It may be a personal objection, maybe it's not the right time for them to do it right now. It's the method objection, or them not understanding the method fully, which makes them feel stupid, and therefore they don't act on it. Okay, because something we feel stupid about, we don't act on it, right? I wouldn't go and buy myself a Ferrari, even if I could afford one, simply because I don't understand Ferraris, and I don't see how a Ferrari would fit me in a day-to-day life, being like a very quiet family guy, because I can't put anything in the back. There is no trunk. Besides, you can just stick like one golf club into it, and you can go real fast. But I live in a small town where I can't really go fast because there's nowhere to go. So not and the Ferrari, again, I don't buy it because I don't want it. I would love that, but it's just not the right fit. So again, all these objections that will come up in the sales process, and the more of them, by the way, the more of them you can predict. This is like the biggest thing ever. Most people think that you gotta fight objections as they come up, right? So you make an offer and the person tells you, oh, the price is right. You make an offer and they say, oh, the time is right. But the thing is that you can always get rid of these objections, okay, up front before you make the pitch. So what happens is, with your email follow-up sequence, what you can do, you can devote each email to be fighting a specific objections. Let me give an example. Let's just say you're fighting an objection of, I got very little cash to spend, and I'm afraid of making the bad choice or making the wrong decision, or I barely, here's a common one. I barely scrape by, right? I barely make ends meet every month, and you want me to spend another $100 on this widget. So a simple way to overcome that objection is to send them an email that tells a story about somebody, whether it is yourself or somebody you know or somebody you made up, which is actually doesn't really matter. It's just the whole point of the story, okay, that's important here. Kind of like what used to happen when we were little kids, right? We were told stories that would deliver a point, which we would accept. So the boy who cries wolf, the point of it is stop lying, because when don't lie, because when you need to tell the truth, nobody's going to believe you. So the same thing goes on here. You tell a story of how somebody who was broke, who couldn't afford it, got it, and as a result, they now enjoy better results. One such story actually that comes to mind is Miles Seegers, which is a personal friend of mine and a client of mine, who is a one of the top performing leaders in something called Big Idea Mastermind, which is right now, pretty big. Everybody pretty much heard about it. And so Miles used to hide checks and bills and everything away from his wife, so she doesn't know they're in great debt. And a Big Idea Mastermind is structured in a way where you have to pay either $1,500 or $2,500 or 4,000, something like that, in order to join the highest levels and earn the most money. And so Miles had to loan the money from the bank without telling his wife about it, and he was risking getting divorced pretty much. And now today, just a few short months later, I think it's 6 months later, he's now enjoying financial freedom. He doesn't work anymore. He works totally from home, helps a lot of people change their financial life and financial existence too. And so it's like a story that illustrates a point without you actually going and telling them, stop kidding yourself, stop telling yourself a bullshit story that you don't have the money because you need this, right? So it allows you to kind of help convince them without really going there and without the confrontation. Justin, am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was wanting to kind of chime in here and just say that, I mean, you going through and telling that story, just you giving that and using it as an example, the people watching this, what I want you to do is just pay attention to, as he was telling that story, did you feel compelled to wonder, who is this guy that he's talking about, and what is this thing that he plugged into that took him from hiding bills to enjoying financial freedom? Just that compelling feeling that you got just from him giving that example, that is proof in itself that this works. Use stories, tell anecdotes. People relate to stories, and that's how the best marketers in the world do it. So yeah, it makes perfect sense, man. Doing great.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, like, let's take a look at Brian Tracy. I mean, anybody who's into making money online is usually also into self-help, and Brian Tracy is one of the biggest self-help gurus out there, on the same level as Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and Tony and everybody. So if you kind of study Brian Tracy, right? His entire 20 CD sets and 5 DVDs and 26 tapes and all that stuff. Most of it is just three big things. It's save money, do go the extra mile, and what was the third one? Set goals. Okay, that's like the three big things that he teaches. But for everything that he actually teaches, he tells like 20 stories, convincing you to actually go ahead and do it. Because like let's just take setting goals, right? A lot of people don't believe in that. A lot of people say, "Oh, I set goals before and never achieved them. So what's the point?" So he's gonna go and he's gonna tell you. I'm sorry. He's gonna tell you that 5 stories about 5 different people or about 5 different corporations that they did set goals, they achieved this goal, and when they didn't set goals, they didn't achieve anything. So he will go and he will sell the concept of setting goals to you before flat out going on and telling you you should set goals. So by the time he tells you you should set goals, you're very receptive, right, and appreciative of him telling you that. So this is the same thing when you're trying to sell a product, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, getting into the specific techniques rather than just moving on with the presentation. And apologies because it will kind of mix a few people up. So therefore I do recommend to go over this training again a couple of times. But what it does, right, when you sell a product, and let's just say we're going to sell an SEO product, okay? So if we sell an SEO product, we got to tell a couple of stories about people who were hit with the Google update and made their way back using our SEO method. Because a lot of people wonder about that when they buy SEO stuff, right? They wonder about whether or not they're going to have Google shut them down, whether or not they're going to have their AdWords account banned, whether or not their backlinks are going to get them ranking or get them sandboxed. they think about this stuff. So we gotta get all of this, garbage, all of these limiting beliefs and limiting buying beliefs specifically out of the way before pitching anything, because it makes our job so much easier. And if we really actually have a great pitch going on, right? Um, if we give it or we show it or we present it to a person who's open, right, to changing their mind, we're gonna make a lot of money. We're gonna make many sales. We're gonna help change many lives. So again, I'm sorry going on this little rant, kind of moving on now. So what's the cure? Okay, so we are understood that there's 6 big reasons why people don't buy from you, and how to overcome them. How the follow-up sequence is going to help us overcome them. So right now, let's go specifically into the details of how to actually go ahead and get them to trust us, get them to like us, and get them to give us money and feel good about it, so we can give them something good in return. So getting them to like you, right? And if we kind of stop for a second, the 3 big reasons, by the way, okay, this is critical. I want you to really, guys, write this down. The 3 big categories of reasons why people don't buy, okay, and don't buy specifically from you, and don't buy, well, from anybody pretty much, but we're going to talk specifically about you. The 3 big categories for that is you, okay, write this down, you, your method, and or your product, and no real reason to act. And starting right now, we're going to go deeper into each and every single element. And we're going to help you to set the environment, to create a sales dance, if you will, using your follow-up sequence. That's going to help you overcome these 3 big objections, okay? And we're going to get them to like you. We're going to get them to trust you. We're going to get them to believe in the method being right for them, and those who aren't right, those who don't feel it's right for them will kind of get off your list real quickly, so you don't have to waste time and money on them. And of course, giving them a real, true reason to act and move forward, because many people, they will feel that everything is right, but they will just not act. Like I've given you the example with the software I purchased, right? It's been on my in my bookmark list for 2 months, and I've only just now bought it because something happened in my business that I said, okay, it's time. I can't delay anymore. So 4 quick ways to get anyone to like and trust you. And excuse me, I'm gonna take a sip of water real quick. So the first thing is repetition. Okay, and there's a big misconception about repetition, thinking that repetition breeds contempt. I think it goes like that, right? But in reality, though, the more we are exposed to somebody, the more we like them. And to give you a quick example, when I arrived at the event that I was at, okay, I met one gentleman who was pretty big. I mean, in terms of being the marketer that everybody knows and everybody wants to be friends with. And I spoke to him for a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes, I guess. And the first impression I got wasn't really like, well, amazing. He was sort of okay, but I didn't fall in love with him. And so the more I talked to this guy throughout the 2.5 days that I was here, the more I liked him. And when he went back home, we actually, I exchanged contact information, and we're going to be doing some business together. So what happens is, being more exposed to him and hanging around him more often and listening to him communicate with me more often, I start liking him more. Now, this principle, okay, works only if the initial reaction is not negative, right? You don't have to fall in love with a person, or you say your clients don't have to fall in love with you. But as long as you don't push them back in some sort of way, right? As long as you don't push them back, you should be okay, and you will be able to get more people to like you. Now, another thing, another way to get them to trust and like you is people like and trust people who like them. Okay, so that is why in the first email, I really recommend you devote it to expressing why and how you actually like and respect the person who opens up your email. So such an example can be something as simple as, hey name, thank you for signing up to check out XYZ product. I really respect you for being an action taker and taking the time to check it out, because by investing your time to do this, you're showing me that you're serious about changing your life and further advancing your list building. And so before you go and you check it out, right here, link. I just wanted to say thank you and that I appreciate your time, right? So just saying something as simple as that, the fact that you appreciate their time, which I hope you do, you can get people to be open towards you because if you appreciate them and you like them, they're going to be more likely to say, this guy is nice, I like this guy. You're going to be way more likely to to win them over, if you will, okay, on a very friendly level. Now, people like and trust people who are like them. So in other words, help your clients, help your client base, help your prospects to try and relate to your life, or better yet, help them mirror their experience in your experience. So in one of my emails, I'm telling a story of how back in the day when I used to work two jobs, and my second job was an overnight security guard on a chemical facility, right? I would always, when I would come back home from work, I would stay up in bed. Okay, the sun would rise, and I just it was too sunny to sleep anyway, and I would just lie in my bed, and my ceiling was like a movie projector, right, showing me a movie of how miserable my life was. So by telling such a little neat story, what I just did, anybody who's in my audience who's like listening to this, perhaps this training right here, and they're going through the same thing, if they ever, if you ever went to bed and kind of like thought about how crappy your life is and how hard it is to change it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so this alone will get some empathy going on between us. So think about how people who go to the army, right, who went to war together, right, living through a horrible experience, living through a very emotional experience together, they are very close, and they're very close for life. So by telling these stories out of your own experience and out of the experience of your friends and your colleagues, or something they can actually relate to, you're getting them to like you even more. And again, hopefully what you're going to be telling them is actually true. So for example, if you're trying to make a selling point about not being afraid of the price tag, that story doesn't have to be true. Actually, it can be made up, or just to illustrate the point, the characters may be made up. So you can, instead of just telling stories about Miles and the Big Idea Mastermind, you can tell a story about the rabbit and the fox, and how the rabbit needed to buy something, he was super afraid, and you know stuff like that. You can literally make it up. But if you're trying to have people mirror your experience, and if you want them to get empathy, the story you're going to tell them about your life and when things that happen to you, right, will have to be real. For example, when my daughter was born, right, for the next 6 months, I was really pimping my daughter. I'm not proud of that, but in every single marketing piece, in every single email, in my Facebook marketing campaigns, I would pimp out my daughter. I would talk about her and how being a dad changes me as a marketer. So that resonated with so many people that they would literally send me messages on Facebook, they would email me, and they would talk to me about my daughter. So obviously they liked me. And moreover than that, I had a few people who demanded, in reply to my broadcast, they demanded I send them photos of my kid. Now, at first it kind of seemed weird, but then I understood that they actually do come from a very positive place here, and they just like they want to feel through my life. They want to live my life through me, right? So they want to live that lifestyle through myself.
Hey, Igor, I want to just chime in there, and again, just another layer of proof that this stuff works is as you're telling that. I mean, I have, as we're recording this, I've got um, a a daughter. I'm expecting a daughter in less than a month and a half, and
Wow.
like immediately, like as you're telling that, I'm pretty focused on this. I mean, this is the only thing that I'm doing in the moment, but as you say that, it's like I get drawn in even closer, and then all of a sudden I want to look at, learn more about those campaigns that you used, and learn, more about you as a father, and how you've done, like, immediately all these other things and these avenues of, in this desire that that I have to learn more about what you have going on and what, how you do things. Just as you told that little quick example story, that happened personally to me. So, I mean, this is, again, I mean, it's just, it definitely works. If you can relate to someone through a story, that's perfect.
Well, for one, you get a big congratulations from
Thank you.
me.
Thank you very much.
You're gonna have a lot of fun. I assure you. Girls are the best. I mean, I only have one, like and she's a girl, but I mean, it's just amazing, amazing experience. But as far as the marketing goes, I completely agree with you that it actually works, and I use it everywhere. And I encourage my clients to use it everywhere because this is one of those things that works all the time. And if you take the time, okay, and you just diligently go back in time 10 years ago, right, when internet marketing was getting hotter and more competitive, or 15 years ago, or look into direct mail, which is where really internet marketing comes from and originates from, you'll see that it's been used throughout the last century, throughout the last 2 centuries, and so on and so forth. Many, many stories make their way through centuries to us, and we tell those stories to our children because they're so good at illustrating points, right? So it doesn't actually have to be, by the way, like if I have a daughter, and Justin has a daughter, right? Now he is obviously going to be resonating with me, but anybody with a child, okay, and anybody who still remembers that time when they just became a father or just became a parent will resonate with me. The reason is that the details aren't that important. What's important is that the point you're trying to make, and the person relating to the point. So I can spin anything about my life really and make points about everything and everything. Like I can tell the story about you know staying in my bed and watching mental movies of how my life sucked to get more empathy. I can spin the same story, okay, and talk about price objection. So I can say I was working 2 jobs and barely scraping by, okay, I literally barely scraped by, barely paid the bills. Nevertheless, when the opportunity presented itself and I was presented with an option of paying $2,000 to my mentor, the guy who I owe a lot of my success to, who showed me the ropes, okay, I did it. I begged him for a payment plan. Yes, I did. I did everything I could. I scraped money. I loaned half of the money. I grabbed a second half of it from my parents. I didn't have it, but I did it. I invested. 6 months later, I got to a level of making 10 grand a month. That's the best decision financially that I've ever made in my life. Okay, so again, I can spin anything about my life to make a point about about an objection or or like getting people to like me, and anybody can do it, by the way. I mean, if you're like over the age of 10, you've pretty much had enough experiences in your life to be able to tell these stories and get your points across. Okay, and you can literally look at anything that happened in your life in the last year and come up with a list of stories that you can tell people to make points. It's what's important here, by the way, is to make a list of things, make a list of limiting buying beliefs that may hold people back from buying, and only tell stories that directly help you influence people, and getting them to buy your stuff. But this specific storytelling example, right? It's about common denominators. It's about common experiences. It's living through the moment together and getting the people to feel through you. I mean, that's telling stories. By the way, is one of the reasons why guys like Frank Kern, who's considered to be probably one of the most famous. I don't know if he's the most profitable in terms of making the money, but he's definitely the most famous internet marketer around here, and has been for the last 5 or 7 years. One of the reasons he's so popular and people like him so much, and he is a likable person. He seems to be very down to earth. But the reason they like him is because the moment he like stepped into the industry, all he did is just told stories to people, right? So remember when he launched Mass Control, Justin, and he told a story about 2 dudes playing naked volleyball,
Yep.
right? And so all it was just a video where Frank Kern was driving his BMW, and somebody was shooting him, and he was telling how he and his wife and his daughter, or he and his buddies, I don't even remember the details of it, but I do remember the point, right? They went to a beach, and they kind of saw naked dudes playing volleyball with their privates out, And so that story was something that most people don't actually voice or tell, because it was kind of outrageous. And it also, by telling the story, he told it so well that we relived the entire moment through him. Like when I say this, I can imagine Frank Kern and his family hiding behind bushes, kind of moving them with one hand, looking over and see, two dudes with their privates out, hairy legs and hairy chests, and playing with a colorful, red, yellow, green, white kind of volleyball kind of ball or something. So you kind of relive through the moment, and then you feel much more connected to the person who tells the story, and thus you like him much more. Again, this can be done through email follow-up. I recommend, though, if you have the mental capacity and enough courage at this point in your career, use the email to get them to watch a video, okay, where you tell the story on video with your voice and tonality, which is going to be generating even more empathy, sympathy, and likelihood between you guys. All right, so the last trick that you can use in order to get people to like you more is admit a mistake. Okay, so what I mean is that actually I have a great little story to emphasize this point. It's actually a true story. Okay, cost me a great deal of emotional pain and heartache. Great lesson though in marketing. So as you know, I'm a solo ad provider. I'm a solo ad seller, and what I do, I supply traffic services to other marketers. Now, there was a guy who wanted me to email a swipe, which is an ad, a creative, right? That was, the subject line was "Why I Hate Empower Network." Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Empower Network is like a big internet marketing / MLM company that, well, just you make money with them. You promote their products and make money. And a lot of people in the Empower Network come to me asking for help with traffic generation. So a lot of people who bought anything, like bought my solo ads, who I put on a special list, okay, they are in Empower, like maybe, I don't know, like 30% of them, okay, which is a big chunk of people. And this guy who wanted us to send the Why I Hate Empower Network, and my assistant, without consulting me, actually did send it out, but instead of sending it to our regular list, he sent it to our buyer list.
Mm.
So people who were actually in Empower Network and working with me to promote it got an email from me saying why I hate Empower Network. Now I got a whole bunch of angry emails. Okay, I had a bunch of people unsubscribe. I had a bunch of people call me nasty names for being a hypocrite, and that wasn't pleasant. So immediately after mailing that email out, what I did, I shot a video where I was admitting my mistake and apologizing for it, and sent it to my buyer list. So this email, and I think the subject line of the email was Empower Network Affiliates, my apologies. I think something like that, right? In the email, I told him to go to a special page where I posted a video where I said that I apologize, it was a big mistake, and I explained to them what happened, and that I have absolutely no problems with Empower Network. I do feel like there's better ways to make money than Empower Network, but I don't hate it. And I feel that, I know that many people make money with it, therefore it has to be good to some extent. So, I just apologized. And what happened next really just dramatically shocked me. And ever since then, I can understand the power of admitting mistakes. So I had almost 50% of the people who opened up the email reply to the email. Okay, they actually replied to it. Not just click the link, but actually, hit reply and sent me something along the lines of, "It's okay, Igor, no worries," or, "Igor, don't stress about it. I don't like Empower Network either." Like a lot of people actually got talking to me again because I admitted my mistake, and they sincerely felt that I was sincere about admitting that mistake. So, I mean, that really got me a spike in terms of activity on my list, and I was kind of shocked. So later on, I tested the same thing on my usual list, and I admitted a mistake of, I think, sending out a broken link or sending out an offer that expired, something like that. And again, a bump, twice the usual open rate happened on my list. So admitting mistakes is really, really powerful, and as well as, by the way, thanking people telling them that you like them, maybe appealing to ego, I guess, right? I mean, Justin, do you have any other examples of such campaigns that work for you?
Yeah, well, I'll give a recent example that I just actually noticed from a an outside perspective. As we're recording this, in the last couple of weeks, one of the big um, email marketing providers, Aweber, actually had a lot of stuff go wrong, and I won't get into the details
Hmm.
of what or how or anything, but um, the the CEO of Aweber, he made it a point as soon as the issues were being, they were made aware of the issues, and as soon as they were making progress, they didn't have them fixed at that. By the time he didn't wait until they had them completely fixed. He came out as soon as, fairly early in the process and said, "Hey, we screwed up. Here's what's going on. I apologize." And just being genuine. He sent out an email every time you logged in. You saw a note from him, and it was something very, very simple that didn't take a lot of his time. But the reason I use that example is because what you do whenever you admit a mistake is you save the potential long-term buyers, because there were lots of long-term buyers, and there's also a lot of short-term buyers that were just looking for a reason to leave Aweber, or they're looking for a reason to, say, okay, well, this person is not the answer to my problems, and go somewhere else, because they have that draw of, the wanting that, that new shiny object that everybody goes through. I mean, that's a temptation. Marketers, if they're good, we're naturally pulled in that direction, and when we get focused on one person or one solution or system, we're just kind of, it doesn't take a lot for us um, to be convinced to go and say, okay, well, this doesn't work, let's go somewhere else. And so the short-term buyers are going to leave anyway, but just by admitting the mistakes, even if people don't hit reply and actually tell you, hey, it's okay, you're saving a lot more business than you even know, and you're relating on a deeper level to the long-term buyers, which is where the real long-term money is going to be made. I mean, if you save those buyers, the ones that are going to stick with you, and in the future, next time somebody starts talking about you, what kind of happens as a byproduct of that is those people that do reply and do connect with you and say, hey man, I understand, things happen, it's okay. Those people are more likely, much more likely in the future, that if somebody else brings any type of attack or negativity towards your company, those are the people that are going to step in front and defend you and kind of take, have your back in those type of situations. So there's a lot of positive byproduct benefits that go on just by using this one little thing, and so it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's the whole thing about your clients protecting you against other clients who want to bash you. I completely agree with that. I mean, the people who actually stick around after that, it's kind of like I used to work in the hotel industry. I used to clean rooms, housekeeping stuff. I hated it very much. But they what they did, they trained us in customer support and customer service. So hotels, they study this stuff. They actually have like whole departments that study customer service and how to get customer to love you and how to turn a pissed off customer into a loving customer. And they said that oftentimes when you screw things up, but then you're quick to fix it and you're also quick to admit the mistake, the people who you screw up with, right, they become the best customers. They start coming every single year. They love the experience. Their questionnaires at the end of their stay are like 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, rather than 5, 4, 3, 10, 8. So it does work like that. Yeah, it does work like that, because nobody likes an arrogant know-it-all, if you will, right? We all make mistakes, and everybody knows that. So when we tell, and show that we made a mistake and we are sorry for it, we are human now, and therefore, people tend to like us more.
Yeah.
So, all right. So moving on, getting them to like your product. Okay. So remember, guys, I told you, just a quick recap. You your product or your method, okay, preferably both, and no real reason to act. The three big reasons. So we've just gone over how to get people to actually like you using your follow-up sequence, okay? So now we're going to talk about how do you get them to like your product or method, and this is actually much simpler procedure than you think, okay? So the 10 reasons they don't like you. They don't like your product or your method. And they're stated in an I-oriented form, if you will. So these are the thoughts that go through the prospect's head. And oftentimes these are the questions that are not being voiced. So you almost have to guess them, if you will, right? You have to obviously know there's a way to find out about these if you just study the big product launches or the big product releases in your industry or in your marketplace, and you study their sales pages and study their emails. Usually the marketers that are really good, they will be focused on this stuff, so you will be able to pick this up in their sales pages and their marketing materials, and you don't have to guess. But for the most part, you can guess these by simply going through the same experience as your buyers do, right? So if you're like made your way up and now you're like a hot shot, you can now tell exactly what's going on through their minds because you've gone through the same experience. So 10 reasons they don't like or trust your product or your method. So again, I-oriented form, as if like the customer says it to themselves or to you. Will I get help if I have questions, or will I be left to my own devices? Like, it's a big concern for many people. Many of them buy stuff and they have nobody to talk to about it. So, if they are refusing to act, you can almost bet 50% of the time it's because of that. Because if they know, right, if they know you got their back, they will act because they have nothing to lose, if they do. Especially if you have like a money back guarantee, which makes the whole deal a total no-brainer. Now this one relates to the product. Is the PDF a video software versus coaching mentoring done for you, right? So just like I told you before, I'm the kind of guy that buys coaching exclusively. There's people who won't invest into coaching ever and only buy ebooks. So you have to, overcome this objection as well. Will it work for me if I'm not technical, which is a big one, okay? Will it work for me if I'm broke or got a little cash to spend? So again, you handle it through a story like we shared before, and you show how this is never an obstacle unless they make it into an obstacle. Do I need to build a website? Big problem for many people. They don't want to do anything. Most people are kind of dysfunctional in that way, and they want just to have the money. They don't have anything else. And so they will ask you, if they don't voice it specifically, they're thinking about it. Okay, they are thinking about it. Justin, and tell me if you agree with this. Oftentimes I find that selling is kind of like getting a woman into bed. You have to like overcome so many objections, and you have to just play it just right to make it happen.
Yeah, it is, and it is a process, and the whole sequence that has to take place before getting in bed with someone is the same. I mean, it has to take place most of the time. I mean, in some rare kind of crazy uncle examples, you might have somebody that walks up to a complete stranger and says, "Hey, let's go get in bed," and that actually happens. But the vast majority of the time, there's a sequence of things that have to happen before then, before that end result takes place. Most of the time, it's going to be the opposite of what he wants if you skip any of those sequences. So there is the whole process. So yeah, I like that analogy.
Well, yeah, because you see, I used to study pickup art. That's how I actually found out about the information marketing industry. That's how I found out about people actually making money online. Because many of today's greatest internet marketers, they come from the dating niche. The greatest example would be David D'Angelo,
Hmm.
also known like as Aben Pagan, who is big, 20 million a year kind of guy, and he came from the wdating.com, so dating industry. Now, in the dating industry, there's a guy by the name of, used to be a guy at least, because I haven't followed it for like 5 years now. I've been married for all this time. The guy's name is Mystery. He has the Mystery Method product. You may even Google him. So somebody asked him, what's the fastest you went from meeting a woman to betting a woman? right? How fast did you get her in bed? And again, ladies in the audience, please don't get offended, or don't let this sound disrespectful towards you. We're just discussing social dynamics, and and you, out of everybody in the audience, kind of get it better than the men, because we have to study it all over again, and you guys have it in your DNA. You kind of still get it. So Mystery said that it took him, the fastest he went from meeting a woman to bedding a woman was 8 hours. Now we're talking about one of the best people in the entire universe right now at seducing women. Okay, and it took him 8 hours. What this tells you, okay, is that, and we're talking about a very hot, Victoria's Secret type model, girl, right? Not just like a girl who works in a library or something. Literally very, very hot woman who knows and realizes she's very hot, and very hard to bed, if you will. So what this tells you, it took him 8 hours, and what we learn from this is that he obviously had to create a specific environment and take you through a specific set of experiences, right, in order for everything to happen. And he had to do it just right. So she says yes and gets in bed with him. So salesmanship, or if you will, a sales dance, right? There's some marketers who refer to it as a sales dance. Is exactly the same. Okay, you have to really create the environment that is correct for the person to feel comfortable enough about a lot of stuff, which we're discussing right here in this training, in order to get them to part with their cash. Okay. So moving on, the next objection would be, can I really do it? Now this is a biggie, okay? People don't really talk about it, but here's the problem that we're facing as marketers, as salespeople, right? Is oftentimes when you tell somebody, hey, I'm making 10 grand a month, I can show you how to do it, they don't really doubt that you can do it, but they seriously doubt that they can do it. Now the reasons for that may be different, and there may be many of them. In fact, what you can say is, sometimes it comes from the childhood and their pre-existing beliefs and misconceptions about money. Other times, they've been grown up and not successful at anything in life, so they kind of don't believe they can do anything at this point, whether it's marketing or betting a woman or buying a Lamborghini, whatever. So a lot of it is actually, a lot about success, right? Gary Halbert, one of the most smarter marketers who ever lived, he's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he said that the biggest thing about success is you got to believe you can achieve success, which means that if you're making a promise that's too big for them, right? If you're making a promise that is too big of a mental leap for them to actually believe it's possible for them, right? They will not question that it's possible for you. They will also not question that it's possible for whoever else, if you got case studies. But they will aggressively question whether or not it's possible for them. So you have to make a very strong case of helping them realize that it's totally possible for them, no matter who they are, where they come from, how much money they've got, what kind of technical skills they got, and anything else for that matter. Now, you want to say something, Justin?
Yeah, I was just going to say, could you maybe give an example of that? Because there's, you've talked about using case studies to kind of relate, and using personal stories and other people's stories to relate and answer those other quote unquote objections. But this is a little bit different. If somebody believes, hey, it does work for them, but they don't believe that it will work for themselves, like it did for others and you. How, when you say make a strong case, to do that, can you give like a couple of things to do, or an example of that? Like, how is it just as simple as telling them, hey, this will work for you, and making sure that does it, or that you keep that layered in, or how do you do this?
Well, no, there has to be a bunch of different reasons that you lay out, both emotional and logical. And we're going to talk about this in action on the next slide, by
Oh,
the way.
okay, cool.
Um, that they actually can do it. It's not like, it's kind of like with the price and the confrontation and stories, right? You almost have to tell them many, many stories and give them many, many examples of other people succeeding in spite of great, limiting circumstances, of people they can relate to that succeeded. Like, for example, in my coaching program, right, I got 56 case studies. Now, 56 case studies kind of pretty much tells you that this guy's for real, he can be trusted, and his methods work. So why don't people act? Well, you see, out of the 56 case studies, I have only five. And I say only because that's how people think about it. There's actually a lot. But I have only five case studies that are women case studies. And I get messages from people asking Igor. I noticed out of the 56 case studies, you got the 51 of them as males, and the five of them are, are females. So I'm a female. Does that mean that your program doesn't quite work for me as well as it does for men? You see, so perception for the customer is reality, and therefore, if let's just say, an African American prospect, right? If he looks over my case studies and all of my case studies are white people, then I'm kind of screwed, because he's going to say, well, he got, nobody, no African American, in his case study portfolio, so his stuff is probably doesn't work, for African Americans, or he hates African Americans, or, just, I don't know. They can come up with all these weird reasons why it may not work for them, looking for like almost an escape route to give themselves like this option of retreat. And so the best way to do it, to be honest, and I haven't really found a greater way to do it besides telling stories, is do it through the use of testimonials. So if you want to sell a product and you want to attract all demographics, make sure you have all the possible case study ages, sex, ethnicity, so you got white people, black people, Hispanic people, Chinese people, Japanese people, Singaporean people. It's like, at some point I added a case study to my portfolio, it was number 40 something, of a guy by the name of Darman. Okay, he's from Indonesia. As soon as I did that, I had a spike in Indonesian and Singaporean applications to my coaching program. Okay, and all of them said, hey man, I've just checked out your coaching program and I've seen the case study, Darman's case study, and it inspired me so much that I decided to take action, even though I've been watching your thread for the last 2 months. Right? So for 2 months, the guy's been watching me, not taking action. I add an Indonesian case study, he takes action. And he thinks that it's just because it's time, but in reality, it's because Darman is also Indonesian, and he now could mirror himself being successful because of Darman being successful.
Gotcha. Very cool.
So, yeah, I mean, if I didn't have a case study, and I was, I'm sorry, give me just 1 second. I have somebody knocking on my door here.
Sure.
Probably my wife.
No worries.
She's been out doing some shopping. Hold on just a second. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. I'll just, it's housekeeping. All right. So basically, where was yes? So if I did not have any, case studies, and I was presented with a challenge of converting somebody who is, say, Chinese into being my student, and his objection would be objection H on your screen right now. Will it work for me if my English isn't good? Right? I would probably tell him a story of how I was born and raised in Ukraine, and I live in Israel right now, so I'm definitely not American, and how I had this challenge of English, but I overcome that English with harder work. So if they're willing to work a little bit harder than most people, I can show them the way to get better at English fairly quickly, show them the resources I've used, and help them in that way in addition to the usual way I help people. Right, so I'm kind of showing them that I'm going to go the extra mile for that person and give him special treatment because of his special situation. So, but then again, you kind of have to act within the situation itself, and then think on your feet, if you will, right? So, because many different people have many different reasons why they don't act, and these are just 10 most common ones that I could kind of put my finger on so far in my career. But there's like weird ones too. I mean, once I got a message from a guy. He said that he's been following the financial news, and he says the dollar is going to crash in a year or two. So how is it going to influence the email marketing industry, where most of it is dependent upon people in the States, and all the transactions are being done in the US dollar? You know, that the whole business is going to supposedly collapse because of that, and how am I prepared to handle that? Okay, so that's first off, that's obviously a prospect I don't want to have. Right? That's obviously a person I don't want to work with, because if they have such a negative mindset about the world, there's really very little I can do for them in terms of helping them. Okay, but it does show an objection that's, if we strip down all the details, says if I build this, if I work hard to build this, how long will it last? Right? So I have to now identify a case study or a story or a personal experience that is going to help me convince this person that it is A, gonna last, or B, the skills he's going to learn from me are everlasting and can be used across any different industry. So if he wants to sell dating advice or forex or weight loss, right, he can use the same principles, and they will work. And I have case studies to support that, of people who actually joined my coaching, did not do the coaching thing, but did study the principles and used them offline to secure contracts to the tune of $500 a day, being copywriters for insurance companies. So I got the case studies and the stories I could tell the guy to really deliver my point. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So, right. So, like I said, the objection H is pretty common, especially if you're like in the international market, right? And you got people from all over the world wanting to work with you. Well, they will ask you this. I guarantee they will ask you. By the way, another way you can tell that who you are and your story attracts specific types of clients. I got many clients from Eastern Europe, which is kind of like a no-brainer, because I was born and raised in Eastern Europe. I got a Russian name, Igor, right? I mean, it doesn't get more Russian than that. And people are, from Moscow drop me messages as well. They don't realize, they don't understand the business, but they want to work with me because I seem to be Russian. You know what I mean? So they try to look for commonalities too. It's really important. It's not like they just try to poke your bullshit, if you will, and try to find a reason why they cannot act, but they also want to look for commonalities. So if you're like a middle-aged male, 35 years old, and you talk like a hillbilly, right, you'll attract a lot of hillbillies who talk like you and look like you, because they feel comfortable doing business with you. All right, so next one is the method-specific nuances. So, for example, if we sell SEO stuff, like I've given the example earlier, will me following your advice protect me from the next Google update? Or if we sell a CPA advice, um, how do I get approved to a CPA offer if I never done CPA before, right? So method specific, again, it has to, I can really list all of them here because there's too many different methods to talk about. It's going to take us days to do it. But whatever method you're selling, whether it's list building or SEO or dating advice, or like if it's dating advice, right? And a common objection would be, what if I'm bold? What if I'm bold and middle-aged? Can I still get like a hot woman to date? And it's not like I want like date them every day, a different woman. I just want one woman that's going to be fairly gorgeous that I can actually date, and I'm very conscious about my bold head. So yeah, you can, because it has nothing to do with how you look, but it is an objection which you have to overcome. So if you got a testimonial from a bold person, and you can have their picture in there too, with their bold, face, head, or whatever, that's gonna be very, very useful for you in order to overcome objections and get more people to jump over the fence. And last but not least, not understanding. It says now, but it's not. Not understanding the big picture and feeling stupid. What this means is that, like I've given the example about the Ferrari, not understanding why I need it, or if we're talking about, say we're talking about product creation, okay? Now, a lot of people feel that it's complicated, and therefore they try to avoid it big time. In reality, it's not complicated, but they don't understand it. They don't understand the process of how to create a product. Therefore, they choose to avoid it many, many times because of because it's something they feel stupid about. And anything that we feel stupid about, we tend to avoid and get rid of out of our life. Like if my wife has a birthday, right? And I need to buy her a present. I need to buy some sort of cosmetics, widget or doohickey, like a lipstick or whatever. Like I would never, ever, ever go and buy it on my own. I would get her sister, I would get her mother to come with me. Like I would never do it on my own because I don't get that thing. I just don't get that stuff at all. I can talk to you about marketing, cars, football, anything. If we talk about women cosmetics, like I'm not gonna be there to to listen to you. So if you're selling product creation advice and people in the audience don't really understand why they need it, how it works, or anything like that, right? They will not do it. They will simply not do it. No matter how of an amazing of an offer you put in front of them, they will really just not do it. And I've seen it, by the way, in this seminar right here, where there was like an audience and content mismatch, if you will, by one of the gurus that came in, and what he did pretty much was a big pitch, okay, but the audience was really just too well, big chunk of the audience, it was like 50-50, advanced versus newbies. So the advanced people already knew that, but the newbies did not understand it at all, and he pitched them a coaching program about creating their own product. So out of the audience of about 30 newbies or so, only one of them took the coaching program, which is fairly low percentage. If you ask me, if you do like a live pitch from stage, you should be able to close way more people than just one of the 30. Because one of the 30 is something you do on a web page. On a webinar, you can do 10 out of 30, but on a live pitch, where they can see you move and you can do a lot of different stuff and you can interact with them, you should be able to do at least 50%. So he only closed one because he did not overcome many of these objections that were still left unsettled. Um, Therefore, the entire pitch gone to the shizzle pretty much. So, Justin, so far so good. Anything you wanna have me clear on? Go clear on?
No, man, everything is perfect right now. I mean, I'm sitting here taking lots of notes myself, and uh, yeah, everything's going good. Makes perfect sense, and starting to see kind of how all of the first things that people typically overlook. We hear a lot of these things, especially some of the things, a couple of the things that you mentioned in the beginning, but they're very, very overlooked. And again, I'll kind of go back to the one of the opening things that I said is there's a difference in people who can tell you, hey, go do this, and people that are actually doing it. And you see the time and how we're really connecting. They're all kind of tying together now. So, um, yeah, doing great, man. Just keep on rocking.
Okay. So moving on. So reasons to act now. Now, remember we spoke again. Just going to recap a little bit. We got to get them to like you. We got to get them to like and believe in your method slash product or both, hopefully. And now we're going to be talking about how to get them to act, because like I said, there's many people out there who you've eliminated all the objections, removed every single barrier on the way, but they still just sit on their ass and don't do anything. They will refuse to take action. So before I talk about the specific implementation, okay, of these tactics, I want to just go over the 7 big reasons why people do anything. Okay, these are essentially why we do pretty much anything in life, and how other people are able to, for the lack of a better word, and manipulate us into doing things they want. And I gotta tell you, okay, I just gotta tell you, number 7, okay, Justin, I was manipulated by number 7 into marrying my wife. I mean, she doesn't speak English, so she doesn't like marketing, so she's not going to hear this call. But I was manipulated using number 7 to get married. She told me, "You should get married to me if you love me." And I said, "Well, I do love you, but I just don't see why should we get married." And she went crying and and guilt tripping me. So it's number 1 plus number 7, really. And we basically got married 2 months later. So this is powerful stuff, guys, okay? Because thanks to these strategies, my wife got me to make a life-changing decision, commit for a lifetime, pretty much. So getting somebody to give you $70 or $100 or $5,000 is not going to be as complicated as you think. So I'm sorry again. I see I got a lot of mistakes here in this presentation that I'm going to fix before I hand out the whole presentation mate. But it's actually 7 emotion-based reasons people do anything. So first one is guilt, and again I kind of listed a little bit of an example near each of them just so you guys get an idea in case it's not clear. But for the most part, it's very clear. So guilt, you know, I'm not going to read it out loud. I'm just going to read the list, and you guys will read the examples on your own. Really, no point in wasting time with that. Basically, guilt, intimidation, appeal to ego, fear, and scarcity, which is critical for marketers, by the way. It's absolutely crucial that we have that. Unless we do, we leave too much money on the table. Curiosity, which is, right now, most of my email marketing is about curiosity. Okay, so another big thing for marketers, desire to be liked. Now this is a big one, but it's more of a human interaction thing, as well as if you guys ever have, and you will, to be honest, anybody who does business for a while has this. If you ever have these clients who buy everything that you release, that really patronize you, well, they want to be liked by you, right? So this is why they do it. And the 7 is love, of course, the biggest motivator of those of them all. So let's get down to the specific implementation of how do you get people to act. So 5 simple ways to actually do it. Okay, first off, you limit the options. Okay, you simply go ahead and limit the options they've got. So nobody likes to feel stupid or making their own decisions. So the more options you really give them, the less likely they are to act. And I tested this. Actually, I tested in my business, but the most profound example I've ever seen was, I think, Joe Sugarman. And correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, because I'm pretty sure you know this too. They were selling the blue blocker sunglasses, and they split tested 2 different offers. One of them was an offer with 7 different sunglasses in terms of options, and the other one was with 2 or 3. And the one with 2 or 3 actually won by a margin of like 600% or something. So the fewer choices you got, the more likely the people are to take action faster. Because if they have too many options, they're going to spend a lot of time thinking which one is best for them, which one should they go with. So even if you do absolutely have to have multiple options, make sure that one of these options is so obvious that it's so much better that they don't even have to think about it, because you're just going to be doing your clients a big favor. Number 2, scarcity. Like I said, critical. We have this in our business, and basically it works, okay, because we don't like our freedom to be restricted. And we also want more of what we cannot have. So if your client, within the first, say, 4 or 5 exposures to your offer, does not jump on it, mail them to a different similar offer, which is going to end soon. In other words, they don't take your product at $67. Have the last 2 or 3 emails in your sequence go to a different page where they can get this product at 50% off, but the deadline is like in 48 hours from now. And it's important that you remember that bullshit scarcity doesn't work. Okay, people can see right through the bullshit scarcity. So it has to be real. Okay, they have to know that if they don't act, they're going to lose it. So, and you'll see how many people they actually go ahead and will act on. I mean, about 30%, okay, of the last minute orders come through my 5th, 6th, and 7th email, where what I do, I allow people to move in at a discount with a bonus attached to it. But it's a deadline of 72 hours. So the first time I mail it out, there's a certain amount of people moving in, but the bulk of it, right, comes in the last couple of emails, where they really get to sense this deadline coming up. So if they know that it's going to be limited, if we know as human beings that something is in limited supply, we're going to pay more for it, and we're going to act quickly. It's like why Ferraris, for example, they sell them, they do like only 50 of them or only 20 of them, and they resell out, just sell out completely in like 2 days or 2 weeks, and it's like 2.5 year waiting list because it's scarce, because there's very few of these Ferraris, there's very few of these, merchandise, I'm sorry, out there. So that's why gold is so valuable. That's why oil is so expensive, because it's going to run out. It's scarce. Now, at the same time, quick tip for you guys: money isn't scarce. Okay, so a lot of people think that money is a zero-sum game, and that if Justin's going to make $1,000 a day, then Igor's going to make $1,000 less than he could have made. In reality, though, it's not true. Okay, money is not scarce. Money does not end. Money is everywhere, pretty much, and it's like out there in abundance. So if you ever got this feeling about money that it's scarce, you really should re-educate yourself about it, and don't let the bullshit scarcity set in and make you do stupid things. So number three, the foot in the door. Now this is great stuff. I mean, I've used it so much to reactivate dead leads. It's just ridiculous. Basically, in the 80s, okay, they did a study, and they in two like very similar upscale neighborhoods, right? They did this study. So one neighborhood, they've approached homeowners and asked them to just stick a big giant drive carefully sign on their porch, on their lawn. All right, so whenever somebody drives through the neighborhood, they see a big sign, drive carefully, so they drive more carefully. Therefore, there's more safety in the neighborhood. Now, by asking them to put this huge sign up, they only got about 17% compliance rate. However, in a different neighborhood, what they did, they approached homeowners and asked them to stick a 3-inch sign, drive carefully, a window sign, right? So they didn't have to put it on their front lawn. They stuck it into their window, and it was a fairly small sign. So 80% of people they've approached complied, which means that if you ask people for a smaller step first, okay, they are more likely to comply. But then 3 weeks later, okay, they've approached the same homeowners who said yes with the big sign and said, could you stick it into your, front yard or whatever. And 60% of those who accepted the smaller sign said yes to the big one, because at this point, having a drive carefully sign on their premises, right, goes hand in hand with who they are, because they've already said yes towards being a citizen that is all for careful driving. So now when they ask for a bigger commitment after they ask for the smaller one, they're more likely to comply because it's consistent with who they now feel and think they are. So when you get a customer who's refusing to give you X amount of dollars, if you downsell them to an offer that is of smaller size, of smaller transaction size, and perhaps giving them less content, they're likely to say yes, and then you can upsell them back to the big thing. Okay, so that's why free trials work, or $1 trials work like that, because you ask them for a little compliance, and then after the little compliance has been achieved, you ask them for a larger compliance, so they're more likely to comply. Again, in terms of the follow-up sequence, what you do is you have a couple of emails at the end of the sequence doing this. Okay, and if you combine, by the way, if you combine scarcity and this, if you combine 2 and 3, you're going to just kill it. You're going to have many, many, many people saying yes to this offer. All right, so number 4 is expectation. So people will act in accordance of what is expected of them. Okay, so what you need to do in your emails is to clearly express what you expect them to do. So you can say something like, if you're a father or if you're a parent, okay, I expect you to be reasonable and I expect you to be have responsibility and take responsibility for your family's financial well-being and invest in this real estate opportunity, because you're gonna help your family. So you kind of tell them what you expect from them, and they're gonna be more likely to act with accordance to what is expected, if you will. That's why, for example, if you're the kind of person that always does the right thing, if you were brought up by your family, by your parents, as the kind of person that always like never steals, never cheats, never lies, or a very good type of person, like my wife, she doesn't lie at all. Like no matter how hard I try to teach her to do it, and no matter how hard I tell her that it's a good thing to do it, especially with my mother, right? Because she's very difficult. You gotta lie sometimes. You gotta get away with stuff. Basically, what happens is she can't because she doesn't. She knows that she's perceived as an honest person, and that's also the perception of what she has of herself. So she just cannot, like physically cannot lie. She would not even try, and she would not settle for it, and she would not, like, she would literally refuse to do it because it's not in synchronized, with who she is, right? So Justin, is that something that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Could you elaborate a little bit whenever you say you try to teach her to lie? Because obviously, I mean, there's been enough story and context that we know that I mean, you're a good person. There's a reason behind this, and I think elaborating on that might be helpful for people.
Okay, well, yeah, I agree. I might be shooting myself in the foot here, so thank you for that. Basically, I have my wife, right? She has a mother, and I have a mom. So we have two grandmas now. And with a daughter, it's really tough to decide who is gonna babysit. So, for example, going here, I'm in England right now, right? So my daughter is back home, is being babysitted. So we had to pretty much lie to get uh, to get her mom to babysit instead of my parents because my parents, they don't do a good job of babysitting, and also they don't really take care of the house the way my wife likes it. So when we come back, it's all messed up in many different ways. So basically, we had to like tell a couple of white lies to make sure that my parents did not even like insist on babysitting, and we get her mom to babysit, which is the safer way to do it. Um, but I mean, whether or not I'm shooting myself in the foot, the point of it is, right? If you kind of strip down the words, the point of it is your clients and yourself and anybody really walking God's green earth, they will only act within the perception of how people see them and how they see themselves. So basically, if my daughter is going to grow up and going to have the right values, and I'm going to try to make sure that she has the values of respect to your parents and don't tell them nasty words and don't argue with them. I'm going to try to instill that value so when she grows up, it's going to be who she is. And if the situation presents itself where she can argue with us and swear at us, which is something I did with my parents. I did swear at them, and so it wasn't nice. It took us a lot of time to make up. Um, I don't want that to happen with my daughter, so I have to make sure that when she grows up, it's going to be against her values to swear on parents and to argue with parents. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect.
So basically, if you want for somebody to act on your product, you have to make sure that their action is is within the boundaries of their own perception of who they are and the perception of what people think they are. So if they consider themselves risk takers and it's a big investment, you want you basically want to tell them and show them how because they're risk taker, it's within their nature to invest in a big expensive business opportunity. Okay.
Cool. Got it. Makes perfect sense.
All right. So again, it's guys, if you have an impression that I'm a liar, I apologize for it. I do my best not to lie at all, unless of course the situation, of course, forces me. But no. But seriously though, I lie just like any other person. My dad was a big liar too, so I learned a lot from him in both in good and bad way. But when it comes to selling, right? Like I said earlier in this presentation, I really expect for you to use these strategies um, with responsibility and only to sell something that is really, really, really helpful and good for your prospects. Because as you've seen so far, right, they can be used to manipulate people, and this is dangerous stuff. So, but sometimes at the same time, right? I mean, what I learned is oftentimes people are their own worst enemies. Like I want somebody to manipulate me to make me go to the gym, but nobody does that, right? I can't really find anyone who can. So I kind of manipulate myself not going to the gym, and I end up fat and kind of a bit overweight. So at the same time, being overweight makes me feel conscious about my belly, about my man boobs, and about my fat ass. So I wish somebody would manipulate me a year ago, to go and get a gym membership, so I can get my stuff together. So again, only use it for the good, only use it to help people, and only use it to sell things that are good for people. Don't use it to sell them drugs, or don't use it to sell them business opportunities they don't need, or don't use them to sell them software, one click push button stuff that doesn't work. Don't do that, because you're gonna lose sleep at night, trust me. It's not gonna do you any good. Plus you're gonna get sued, and FTC is gonna come after you. So yeah, really not that fun. Ask Frank Kern. He had that experience. All right, so last but not least is process simplify, which is a fancy term. Basically, what I mean here is you want to simplify the process. Okay, before they go on to the process, you want to simplify the process as much as you can into as few steps as you can before asking them to take action. Um, you see, this is a psychological principle that talks about how if we are used to doing something, right, we will pretty much break it down into smaller steps and make him sound easy. So if I like to say drive, right, I would say, oh, driving is easy. You just get in the car, start the ignition, put it in first, put it in automatic, and just drive. That's my definition of driving at this point. But if somebody who's just starting to learn how to drive, and they're still very conscious about everything, they're going to get into the car and you're going to ask them, so describe to me driving, describe what driving is. They're going to tell you something along the lines of, well, you got to get into the car, close the door, adjust the mirrors, check that there's nobody behind the car, put the key into the ignition, turn it, then put it in first shift, slowly let go of the pedal, and press on the gas. So in other words, they're going to describe a very, very complicated process, right? So when you want somebody to be more accepting of what you're trying to sell them, you need to simplify it as much as possible so they can see themselves do it and actually believe that they can do it, coming back to the objections we discussed before. So this way you're going to get higher levels of compliance, of compliance, um, in order to sell more stuff and help more people. Because remember, here's the thing about selling. A lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about selling too, not just money. And if you really can sell the crap out of whatever you're teaching them how to do, right? If you can really sell the crap out of your gym membership, they're gonna work harder and more diligently at doing the exercise and sticking to the diet than if somebody who bought it because and got some buyer's remorse and never used it and never stuck to a diet. So what happens is, those who didn't stick to it, they kind of lost money and time, and they're still fat, right? And those who you really sold it to really, really well, to a point where they really believed what you told them to believe, which is something that it should be true, by the way. Again, a lot of it sounds like we're like manipulating people into selling them stuff they don't need. Again, I go over this one more time. Only use it. This stuff very, very, very powerful. So only use it in order to give people something they actually need. So if you really do the job of selling and sell somebody on getting a gym membership, and they lose weight, they feel great, they further extend their life by 10 more years. And I watched my dad pretty much suffer from 2 heart attacks, a kidney failure, and a liver failure, because he wasn't never exercising, he was drinking a lot, he was eating all the unhealthy foods, even though doctors would tell him not to, right? So I wish I had the skills of salesmanship back in the day, back when I was 16, so I could sell him on the right way to treating his body. And this way I would really I would be able to save my dad from living a very limited life right now. He has to get connected to a dialysis machine every other day, has like to take like 15 pills every morning. I mean, he can't really lift up my daughter, because it's too heavy. She is too heavy at this point, and it may hurt the heart. So a lot of stuff that he cannot do right now, a lot of things in life he cannot enjoy right now because nobody sold him on the critical importance of taking care of his body back in the day. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So again, guys, I really wish that you take in everything you learned so far on this call, and really use it to the better good and to really change the world. Because imagine you're selling, right? You're selling, a cure for cancer, and the cure for cancer is kind of expensive. Let's just say it's like $100,000, but this is gonna save somebody's life. So if you know for a fact that what you're gonna sell them is gonna save their life, and they have cancer, and what would you do? Well, you'd be knocking on their door. You would be climbing over to their chimney. You would be trying to rent a big truck, park it in front of their house with a big banner ad saying, "Hey, wussy, I got cure for cancer. Stop avoiding me." You're gonna do everything humanly possible in order to reach that person and sell them that cure for cancer, no matter how expensive it is, no matter how stuck financially they are, no matter what, because you're gonna save their life. Now imagine their kid has cancer. They don't, but their kid has cancer, right? How bad, how hard would you work to sell them that, knowing that you're gonna save a child's life? Not just any life, not just like a 50-year-old guy's life, but a child's life. Would you work harder? Of course you would. You would use any manipulative trick in the book to get them to buy it. You know, how manipulative, can you go, or how salesmanship can you inflict on your child, for example, right? To make sure the child doesn't do drugs. I mean, I'm gonna sell my kid on all the virtues, and I'm gonna do it within every possible tactic. I'm gonna tell every possible story. I'm gonna limit their options. I'm gonna give them scarcity. I'm gonna, do the compliance technique. I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure my child doesn't smoke like I did. Okay, back then when my wife did too. I'm gonna make sure they don't do drugs. I'm gonna make sure that they take good care of their body. Okay, I'm gonna make sure they study well at school on certain topics, and certain topics I don't really care, because I don't really believe in the education system here in what we like. I believe in financial education. Don't really like believe in the regular one. Um, so I'm gonna sell them on everything that I can that I know is gonna improve their life because I care. And having these skills and understanding the way humans make decisions, I'm gonna use these skills to make my child's life and my family's life better. Okay, um, so yeah, I think. Oh, we got something else. I kind of forgot. You guys are in for a treat. So good thing I kind of went over the way to approach all of this, right? Because what these are, and I kind of forgot about it. I'm really sorry. These are elite compliance techniques. So a couple of tips, 7 specific tips that are going to help you close the deal. So if you got the prospect to a point of sitting on the fence, not really knowing whether or not they should take action, these will help you really get them over the fence. So first and foremost, you got the appeal to emotion and logic. So a lot of people say that people buy with emotion and justify with logic, and that 90% of decisions are made with emotion. Well, it is kind of true, but not really, because if you just ask him to make an emotional decision and no logic, you're gonna have a big, big, big problem, a very high refund rate, a lot of buyer remorse, and people will not really do what you ask them to do and change their life. So instead, what you do, you appeal to emotion, but then you justify everything for them with logic as much as you can, because you have to have both in the mix if you want to get real long-term compliance. Okay, not just any compliance, not just temporary compliance, but long-term compliance from your prospects. Now, two, prevent unpleasant event or circumstance. So in other words, you got to tell them and show them how acting on your opportunity will prevent a bad thing happening in the future. Okay, so in other words, there was a case study of a big weight loss company that they mailed a promotion that said you may be a winner, and it was some sort of like sweepstakes contest or something. Um, but and they mailed it for a while. It was working pretty well. But then they started mailing you may already be a winner. In other words, if the prospect would not check out the promotion, they may lose out on winning. Okay, because it's like as if they already have it. So that was a much more powerful statement. Again, use it in your marketing, and only if you sell some good stuff. Number three, pleasure motivation versus pain motivation. Okay, so what that means is basically there's two reasons why we do stuff. We do either to get pleasure or to avoid pain. Now, what's critical here is to understand which type of prospect is in front of you. Now, this is actually, the best use of it is through personal chat or personal phone call. So you can feel through the words that the person is using. So if you ever get to doing social media marketing, right, social media chatting, where you close people on Facebook chats and getting them to apply through social media, this is where it really comes into play, and you can understand based on the specific language patterns that the person says. Okay, how exactly are they making decisions? Are they making decisions based on the things that excite them, or are they making decisions on the things that they may lose out on, or pain that they may experience in the future? And that's how they act. Now, I personally am the kind of person that is acting on fear. So if I know I'm going to lose something, I'm going to act much, much more aggressively than whether somebody will promise me, a lot of pleasure, if you will. At the same time, if you really like, if you want to motivate me, right, you will have to do both pain and pleasure, but you'll have to do an emphasis on the pain part. And so for each and every person, it's kind of different. So what you can do in your follow-up sequence, if you don't want to chat with people in private chats and talk to them on the phone, you can have a 50-50 split of emails oriented on avoiding pain and emails oriented on getting pleasure. This will serve you as a great, it will get you a bump. I can almost guarantee that. Number four, internalized solution idea. So basically what happens here is we, coming back to the same point that I made on the last slide, that we only act within the certain perception of how, you know, of what we feel is our decision. In other words, if the decision we arrive at, if it feels like we were the ones to make that decision, we're going to be sticking to it and protecting it much more aggressively than if we were made into making the decision. So to give an example, I was actually at one point I was in prison, in jail, in army jail for a couple of days, because I tried to go MIA and I didn't want to go to the army. Now in Israel, going to the army, being recruited is a mandatory activity, and you have to give 3 years to the country, serve as a soldier, and pay your debt. I did not want to do that because it felt like somebody else made the decision for me. They just told me you got to do it, and I was like, well, why? Well, because the government says you should, and because everybody else, says you should, and because everybody else does it. And I really, really rebelled against that sort of bullshit because the idea of serving in the army wasn't my idea. You see, at the same time, my dad was an army man. He was an officer in the Soviet army, so uh, um, he went on to the rank of a major. So I mean, I had the army spirit in my house. I was very disciplined, and I was definitely open to give my life to the army because we were doing pretty well for ourselves back in Ukraine. The army was taking really good care of its soldiers. But here in Israel, because somebody else made that decision for me, I was not willing to do it. So if you want to get, again, if you want to get very high quality prospects and you want to get, if you want to have a rewarding business both financially and emotionally, you want to work only with prospects who have internalized the solution or idea that you're selling. So in other words, The best prospects for me are those who want to do solo ads and list building. That's the persons I want to work with because they already know the value and the effectiveness, right, of the method. I don't need to resell them on that. And just like I was telling Justin before we got on the phone, I was having an email back and forth with an angry customer today who was really discouraged in the entire solo ad idea, right? So at first I thought he had a problem with me and my service, but it turns out that he got discouraged in the entire solo ad community as a traffic source because he could never make it work. So obviously that's not the best prospect to work with for me, but it kind of shows that now he has internalized this idea that solo ads suck, and he will never, ever do it again. Okay, it's going to be very hard for anybody to convince him to do otherwise. Now the next principle is consistency. So we discussed it just in the previous slide. Consistency with compliance, little compliance and big compliance, and consistency with perception of who we are and the perception of who other people think we are. Number 6, know-it-all. Okay, nobody likes a know-it-all, pretty much, and we all try to stay away from know-it-alls. And I mean, I know a couple of people like that, and it's not like it's never a cool thing to hang out with them. You tell them something and they kind of contradict you and they say it's not so, and you don't know what you're talking about, and they're like very know-it-alls, if you will. So in order for people to be open to listening to you and accepting your ideas, you have to come across as a guy who's open-minded and who admits that he doesn't know everything there is to know about everything. Okay, so make sure that when they talk to you, when you talk to your prospects, and when you send out emails, you never come across as a know-it-all, but at the same time you have to be very confident about what you're saying. Okay, so it's a tricky balance, but eventually you get it right if you just practice it a little bit. And so the last but not least is a clear step-by-step action plan before proceeding. So it kind of comes back to what we discussed before with understanding the process. So not only they need to understand the process of the method that you teach, but they also need to understand the process of how the order is going to be. How do they submit their order? What happens after they submitted the order? Where do they need to click? Where do they need to go? Where's the link? The down link is going to land. Like everything. Okay, so the clearer you are about it, the more likely they are to take action. And again, this is not like a game-changing thing, but it will generate longer-term compliance from your customers. And yes, we're done. Now, as I promised, at the beginning of this call, you can go to thenewkingofinternetmarketing.com/swipe file and get a free confidential swipe file of my 11 top performing subject lines and a specific breakdown of the psychological principles, why they work so well for me, as well as, of course, examples of how you can swipe them for yourself. Now, that's pretty much it. I mean, Justin, you want to add something? Maybe you want to ask me something?
Man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I just wanted to stress the fact that this is the stuff that really matters, and the people that are watching this and having issues with not being able to write effective follow-up sequences, or not getting the results that they want because of out of their follow-ups. Everything, I'm almost positive that if you just look at it and you go through each one of these points and listen to what Igor said, you will find out that why that is, and be able to fix something in the process. And if you have no follow-up series already written, and you have this as a foundation going into it, it's going to make things a lot easier. Knowing this going into writing a follow-up sequences is going to make a big difference in the actual conversion. And again, this is somebody that is in the field actually doing it right now. So one thing that I would ask, Igor, is there, I know you've got several different funnels and several different things going on. For someone to see kind of what it is that you're doing, and see an example of yours. Is that part of the swipe file, or is there another funnel that they might be able to go and actually opt in on and just kind of pay attention to your messages and see how you position things and use see kind of all of this stuff that you've taught in action? Is there a place that they can go
Well, actually,
to really see that?
when you do visit, yeah, when you do visit the funnel page, and let me kind of go ahead and just visit the funnel page. All right, so can you see my
Perfect. Yeah.
browser? Yeah. So you see this little opt-in form. When you opted in, when you opt in, you get the copy of the swipe file, and there will be an automated follow-up sequence deployed in order for you to check out exactly how the principles I've described in this, thorough training, if you will, because it was kind of thorough. How I use it, okay, in the specific subjects, the specific verbiage, the specific language patterns, the specific timing of messages. So if you just kind of try to see through, you will be able to pick up a lot of these techniques and a lot of these principles. Not all of them. I don't think I'm using all of them, right? But I do use most of them. So most definitely encourage you to check it out and to opt in, obviously with a valid email so you can get the emails. And check out the subject line swipe file because it's gonna pretty much double your click-through rates if they suck right now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. I appreciate it. The fact that you're doing it in a hotel before you leave. I mean, it's uh, definitely much appreciated. I've got a ton of value, um, and these are all things that I'm going to be going through myself, and and building out new funnels going forward. So much appreciated, man. Encourage everybody that's made it here. Go ahead and check out. Obviously, look at that swipe file. Go through, opt into his funnel, use a good email, and pay attention to those emails. That way, you can see from a kind of a high level. You see a lot of this stuff in action. You can see how he communicates and how he tells stories, how he does certain things, all these different things that he's mentioned today, and you can kind of notice your emotions, notice your perspective and thought about Igor as you start going through these. Because once you notice how you react to things, chances are, then you're a lot more able to zoom out and say, okay, well, it worked this way with me, and go and just take that and plug it right into your funnels and work the same way with your other prospects. So
Well, I would also appreciate if you just don't like copy paste it into your funnel, but literally make it more, turn it into your own style, and of course, go about the specific objections that relate to your product. Because as I've said, my sequences, my products, my stuff is list building stuff, right? So if you're selling a product that's not list building related, or maybe it's a different, I'm sorry, it's a different type of list building, okay, then you will have to approach things a bit differently. The mechanics will be the same, but the specifics will be different. So if you sell list building using Facebook ads, right, copying word for word what I do would not work for you because I do list building with solo ads. So obviously Facebook ads is one of the objections that I have to overcome when getting people on board with the solo ad thing.
yeah,
So again, you have to
absolutely.
think through all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Just to kind of reiterate, the power of knowing these fundamentals and building this framework and this foundation going into it. Because if you understanding all the stuff you talked about today, that is what really makes good follow-up emails. And most people, when they want to write a follow-up sequence, or they go find a good one, and they do just that. They copy and paste. And we've got a few trainings leading up to this one about the differences in copying and modeling, and kind of how to do that. And so yeah, I definitely that just reiterates that point. All the stuff that you taught, that can be applied to any industry. So go check out Igor's stuff, see how he's doing it. Obviously, be aware of what market he's in, what he's selling, and yours is going to be a little bit different depending on what market you're in and what you're selling to. So, Igor, man, I can't thank you enough for your time. Anything else you want to add? If not, I think that's a wrap. We've got a lot of good stuff here that people can go and start implementing right away.
Well, the only thing that we really never said on this call is that everybody should buy my solos.
Yes,
That's probably the only thing we did not reveal on this call. That the big secret to everybody's success out there is they buy solos from me.
that's right.
But yeah. But no, seriously, I mean, these, what we shared today is very deep. Is what 99.9% of marketers do not talk about, but all the big dogs actually use it. So copy it, use it, deploy. If you got any questions about how to use it, feel free to drop me an email and hit me up on Facebook. And I will be happy to hear any success stories or results that you guys got, again on Facebook or email, which hopefully, with your permission, we can use later on in any promotions we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, just kind of a point on that. We've got a full dedicated training around this here in the members area as well. But I've been in the solo ad buying business for a long time, pretty consistently, and a lot of people come and go. He's been one of the people that consistently deliver the same message and has the same quality. It's very his people respond. He's got one of the better lists out there. And he knows what he's doing. He knows how to interact with people. His audience is very responsive. So, that's one of the reasons that I don't have a problem in the world backing and endorsing Igor solo ads, because I've never ever got a complaint from someone saying that, hey, you recommended Igor and he screwed me over, or you recommended Igor and I wasn't happy with the results. He's one of the more consistent people that actually deliver and really cares about his buyers. So uh, I definitely appreciate your time, man. Thanks for jumping on and dropping all this wisdom on us. And if there's anything that we can do for you in the future, just let us know.
Oh, I sure will. I'm just kidding. No, it was a great pleasure. I mean, it's always a great pleasure, spreading this stuff and helping people realize that selling is good. Selling is actually, there is no, Gary Halbert used to say that there is no problem in the world that cannot be fixed with the right sales letter. I mean, we could have world peace if we had the right sales letter, go out to the world leaders and, anybody who owns a biological nuclear weapon or something, right? Just with the right sales letter, you can influence people and turn the world into a better, more profitable, more prosperous, healthier, safer place. And I'm all for doing that. And I really genuinely feel that if we all get better at this stuff and we educate a new generation of kids and the people. Well, actually, it starts with children, with what they hear at home, right? But I mean, if we actually do that sort of stuff, we're gonna live in a great place, in a great universe, pretty much limitless. And I really hope that this training does touch somebody's life and it touches the life of their kids and through generations into being better salesmen and better communicators, to change the world into a better place than it is right now.
Yep. Just goes to show where your values are and what type of person you are. So I think we'll wrap it up with that. I appreciate again you, Igor, and then the ones that stuck with us here and going through and investing the time in watching this. Definitely go and take action. And again, the theme of everything we do here is to get more results, and implementing what you just learned is exactly how you're going to do that. So much appreciated. We'll go ahead and close this thing out. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next trainings.